Let's take a look at some information and charts on Waves for Brave New Coin. So Waves is an older proof of stake coin and really can help guide the eventual proof of work to proof of stake transition for ETH, because Waves is kind of doing everything that ETH is doing, in a sense that they have DeFi, they have stable coins, they have an exchange, they have DEXs, they have AMM swaps, they have all this stuff. So it's working in a sense that it exists already on a proof of stake ecosystem, but they've branded most recently as what they call blockchain agnostic interchain DeFi. And I always like to look at the Twitter accounts of these projects to see if there's anything substantial that's happened super recently. They have NFT stuff as well. Once there's anything big on any chain, all of the chains copy those ideas or strive for that market share. So we'll look at that as well. And if we look at the Waves website, they have stable coins, they have dApps, they have enterprise stuff. They have everything, the buzzword soup that everybody wants for their chain interoperability. They have on Waves. I see virtually nobody talking about Waves besides myself. I kind of talk about it because it's on my list of projects that aren't complete scams, and it gives me something to analyze. But they aren't going anywhere, and they've continued to build stuff. I tried looking into the nodes as far as the staking components. I'm always curious where that money sits. I don't really understand this leasing stuff. I assume this is the Waves that I'm looking at, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's something else. Anyway, so they have some sort of leasing component, but it looks like 75% of the total network is being staked, at least based on the circulating supply. After inflation, that's a 1% reward, so not a lot of people are going to jump at that based on what they can get for just USDC on Aave, right? That's what all of these proof of stake networks are going to be competing with, is these yields either through AMMs or just through lending and borrowing platforms. Why would I want to risk the volatility from buying and holding Waves and staking it when I can just buy USDC with USD, stake it on Aave for double the adjusted APY, right? That's even something ETH is going to have to contend with, and that I'm surprised it hasn't really felt in a bigger way in this ETH 2.0 transition. There's still 5.5 million ETH in the ETH 2.0 wallet, and there's no way a lot of that yield is better than what you can get or what people were getting in DeFi. So maybe it's a cultural ETH maximalism thing, I don't know, but proof of stake will forever have to deal with, or compete with rather, the yields everywhere else. And I was surprised that the market cap for Waves was this tiny. I mean, Doge is like 30 times the size, 20 times the size of Waves. So not too much circulating relative to even ADA or these newer chains like DOT or ICP. They've already established themselves as having the ability to at least make some of this stuff on chain. Here's some of the investing things they have on the DEX. The APYs and the names for this stuff's a bit questionable, but it's there. Now, I don't really know how many people are participating directly, but at the very least, stuff like this exists on Waves. The calculations on the income look questionable. Here's their exchange, perfectly serviceable. Looks like any other centralized exchange, FTX, Binance, right? Looks fine. Yeah, your trading view chart, order book, pairs, trades, buys and sells here. So this looks fine to me as far as actually using it. This is something I would use. I don't use it, but it looks fine. And then here you can see they're starting to onboard this interoperability stuff. I didn't even know Monero could be on Waves. That's interesting. But most of it is obviously Waves itself, stablecoins, Bitcoin, Tether. That's typically what you're going to see Bitcoin and ETH on any of these DEX AMM type protocols. This is their swap platform. Again, it looks just like Uniswap or any of these other swap platforms. Matcha, the UI is there. Just needs the people to be there as far as the trading component is concerned. But if anything, this shows me that if ETH falters in any way for a second, there are plenty of projects more than ready and capable of collecting that market share. If anything, Waves might connect with ETH at some point in time for interoperability in a bigger way than it is now. When you're seeing these ETH dApps go multi-chain, maybe Waves is in that conversation eventually. I don't know. I don't know what that would entail, but they clearly have the infrastructure for it. Looking at the TVL, you have to pull up this Telegram bot, but the TVL was 1.9 on May 4th, and that's declined to 1.1. And it looks like those losses were from the stablecoin, the Neutrino USDN. I believe that this is just a stablecoin calculation because the exchange itself and the swap platform both increased in TVL since I last checked on it over a month ago. And here's some more of the listings as far as dApps are concerned. Nothing most people have heard of probably, but they have stuff that they're working on and it looks like it works. I don't know what the liquidity is like. I don't know what the yields per se are like. I'm not going to run and move capital into waves or anything, but it's there, right? At the very least, it's there in a bigger way than even ETC has established itself. If you look at transaction counts for on-chain token stuff, it's basically at an all-time low. I mean, you can't get bullish on this when you're seeing the initial speculative fervor of 2017, 2018, and then just go basically to zero. I mean, there's very little on-chain transactions relative to what happened in 2017. And the difference here is probably that, DeFi really took over BSC, all the Doge clones. That took the liquidity out of the room as far as retail participants are concerned. Average transaction values at all-time highs as price hits all-time highs. So even though on-chain metrics look poor at best, price still managed to hit an all-time high. This is active addresses, which had some weirdness in 2018, but after that, they basically are flatlined. Not a lot happening here with active addresses either relative to price action and all-time highs in price. And NVT continues to creep up over time since January 2020, down from the March highs, but trend-wise, rising NVT just says what I've been saying is just that there's relatively little on-chain activity compared to the market cap. Even though the market cap's still relatively low at less than 2 billion, there just isn't a lot happening on-chain there. Switching to technicals, this is the 1-year MA down here, and this is 5 times the 1-year MA. And anything above the red has been a sell zone. Anything in the green has been a buy zone. You've had to really hold on for a substantial period of time, right? So 2018 to 2020 was a bear market, even late 2017 to mid 2020. So that was almost a 3-year bear market. In order to get to where we are now, maybe this is some alt season wealth effect, maybe it's some DeFi stuff. But really, the chart between Ethereum and Waves honestly looks very similar. As much as people want to think ETH is a new paradigm and Price says that everyone's switching to ETH and ETH is great, blah, blah, blah. When you compare ETH to some of these altcoins, it looks rather similar, especially this 2017, 2018 stuff, and even over the past few weeks, this pop up and drop. So lots of stuff is still correlated. Despite Waves really having no business in the conversation with ETH, price-wise, it looks very similar. So trend is neutral, I guess. It's certainly not as bullish as it was. The multiplier told you to get out at 36, above 30, let's say. So it gave you plenty of warning here. If you were holding from any of this down here, if you're holding for the past 3 years, this is telling you, get out while you still can. Currently that buy support or whatever you want to think of it as is at around $8, about a 50% drop from here. On the 50 and the 200 cross, it had been bullish since mid 2020. Looks like it will probably cross bearish over the next couple of weeks. Tons of support below 550. I mean, years of support, right? Years of volume. This is all on Bittrex actually because they had the data for it, but the volume up here relative to sub 550 is virtually non-existent. So maybe there's support down there, but previously it took 3 years in order for this thing to actually move again. So it's hard to be optimistic about Waves in the near term, considering it looks like the move is kind of finished and accumulation probably won't happen until sub 550. On the cloud, it's below the cloud for the first time since mid 2020. You can say there's a decent case for a TKC clamp here. Maybe it pulls up to 27, but until it's back above 27, then it's bearish or neutral. Definitely more bearish because it's below the cloud, but trend looked great up until, recently, right? It was above the cloud, it was bouncing on the cloud, trend looked fine. 2021 from January to May looked great, and then it pulled back with everything else. Waves BTC, massive range. I wouldn't trade this or touch this for any reason, really. Doesn't really look like anything, just it's too volatile to even get a signal here, but the 50 and the 200 cross is bullish, supports at 32k sats, and Turbo Ultra Mega support at 13k sats. Then on Waves ETH, also extremely choppy, and just looks like a massive range between 003 and 01. That's a multi-year range in that zone. So not a lot of people are going to really watch this video, to be quite honest, because nobody really cares about Waves, but I think it's interesting that they've established what they have, kind of silently, gotten the TVL that they have. They've got some baseline things should ETH falter in the DeFi realm, or should some of this stuff go increasingly multi-chain. Waves could be back in that conversation, depending on if incentives are aligned for these projects to move to Waves. Aave's not moving to Matic unless there's incentives to do so. 1inch isn't moving to BSC unless there's incentives to do so. So pay attention to that, watch for that. Maybe it never happens, but they at least have that capability by the looks of it. Lastly, I'll just mention the ETH-BTC Fund I trade for Techemy Capital on Enzyme.finance, along with the DeFi portfolio, both of which are non-custodial portfolio management tools, where you can send ETH or USDC to participate or just watch what I'm doing. You can see AUM allocations, all the trades I make. The money goes into a smart contract. The crypto goes into a smart contract, and it's basically copy trading. My inputs, we had 15 to 20 DeFi coins in here in the DeFi portfolio, most of which I had to get rid of because they were continuing to establish lower lows and looking as though they still have 50% down to go across the board. I really don't want to buy most stuff in a big way until it's down 50% or establishes some signs of strength. That's all I for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.